Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is incredible to be here. Thank you all so much for joining in on this live shir, on our pre-Pesach shir. I want to say that this is actually the third year in a row that we are doing this shir, right before Pesach, right before the Seder, with the hope of getting motivated, with the hope of getting inspiration, and as well with the hope of getting some practical tips to be able to have a really, really meaningful Seder this year. And before we start, I just wanted to thank a few people. We always start the shir by thanking the host. So this time I would like to thank Rabbi Chait for his classroom here in the yeshiva. Thank you very much, Rabbi Chait, for using it. And as well to thank Moshe Bagley and Mr. Avram Eliezer Friedman for all the help with the tech stuff, making this happen. You know, it's kind of unique. Giving a shir not in people's homes, as we usually do, seeing everybody's faces, being able to talk, to have a discussion together, learning together, and it's a unique situation. It's unfortunate, but this is the best that we could do for these circumstances. But as we usually do, we always have the shir in people's homes, and this one was scheduled to be that way as well. So I wanted to thank the Goldsmiths, the Avissars, and as well as the Lamets who had full intention of hosting in their home. And we thank you so much for that. And Emir Hashem, we'll be able to get together to learn in person at some point, hopefully soon, Be'ezus Hashem. You know, this is a really tricky year, as everybody's aware. This is not a simple time. It's rather difficult for everybody. And, I was kind of wondering, what should I talk about in this year's Seder? In the past, it was always very straightforward. We have a Seder coming. What do we do? How do we get there? But this year, we're faced with an immense challenge. And we know there's a ton on everybody's mind. A ton. Our safety, our personal health, our family's health, all those people who are already sick, and the numbers, unfortunately, are going up and up and up every single day. It's a challenging situation for all of us. And it creates concerns for our health, concerns for our finances, and it leaves everybody in a state of unknown. Everybody's unsettled. Everybody doesn't know what the next step is. What's going to happen next? I don't think anybody predicted 4 weeks ago that now we would be in a situation where our shuls are closed, our kollels are closed, our schools are closed. We're just staying at home by ourselves. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. Yet that's the situation that we're in. And I was wondering, what could I say at a time like this that could help us? That could help us, especially as Pesach is approaching. Most people probably don't even want to think about Pesach. It's very, very difficult, especially if you're a first-timer at Pesach, like myself, okay? Making a Pesach on your own is not that easy. And everybody's very overwhelmed. So what are we supposed to do? And I want to start by reading a letter. Many people may have seen this. It was floating around. I got this as a post. This was a letter that came around on Friday, March 13th. And it came from a Rabbi Moss from Sydney, Australia. And he was asked the following question. And I quote, "This coronavirus thing has really thrown me. I feel like I've lost all sense of certainty. No one knows what will happen next. How do we stay sane when we don't know what's lurking around the corner?" How do we stay sane when we don't know what's lurking around the corner? That was the question asked to Rabbi Moss from Sydney, Australia. And listen to this brilliant answer. This is what he said. "It is not that we have lost our sense of certainty. We have lost our illusion of certainty. We never had it to begin with. This could be majorly unsettling or amazingly liberating. This tiny virus of 125 nanometers has sent the entire world into chaos. All of our plans are up in the air, markets are going crazy, entire countries shutting down, and we have no clue what the future holds. But that is always the case. We never know what the future holds. We only think we do. And keep getting surprised when things don't pan out the way we expected. What will happen next? We don't know. Our experts don't know. Our leaders don't know. Only God knows. And that is the point, that only God knows. Keep calm. Panic and fear are also contagious. Take every precaution as advised by health authorities. Wash your hands well. And every time you do, remember whose hands you are in. From Rabbi Moss, from Sydney, Australia. We feel so unsettled, and everybody does, but we have to realize his message, which is so true, that we have no idea. We have no idea. It's totally out of our control. Everything's out of our control. But there is somebody who is in control. And that's the Rabbonu Shalom. That is Hashem. That is the God that is running this world. You want to know how to stay safe during this time? Listen to this. Listen to what Rav Chaim Volozhin said. Unbelievable quote. He says that when a person sets in his heart to say the following thing, Halo Hashem hu Elokim ha'amiti, that God is the only true God, ve'ein od milvado yisborach, and there's nobody else besides for God, no other powers, only Hashem that is running and that is in complete control of the world, we eliminate everything else that we put our faith into, whether it be our finances, whether it be our job, everything else, and we put our full and total faith in Hashem. He says that is a guarantee, that is a segula nifla, to remove from ourselves these evil decrees. We got to realize this message. We have to realize how important it is to recognize that Hashem is fully in control. And, many people think that how am I supposed to be focused on Pesach? How can I be inspired towards Yontif at this unsettling time? And the actual truth is, that's quite the opposite. You see, the fact that we're unsettled, the fact that we're out of control is exactly what Pesach is all about. That's the message of Pesach. The fact that we're in this situation right now, everything that we're going through, all that we're feeling, that sense of lack of control, being totally unsettled, that's supposed to inspire us towards Pesach because that's exactly the message of Pesach. Did you ever wonder, why is it that everywhere we turn in this religion, we're saying, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, we want to remember the Exodus of Egypt. Every single thing we do, the holiday of Pesach, the holiday of Sukkot, we have the mitzvah of mezuzah, we say Kriya Shema, every single thing we do, even Shabbos every single week, is to remember the Exodus of Egypt. I mean, I got to tell you, it's a great story and all. The Exodus of Egypt, great story. Major part of our religion, but there's a lot more. There are a lot of other stories in the Torah. Why is it that every single thing in this religion, everything is focused around the Exodus of Egypt? And the Ramban, Nachmanides, answers this question so beautifully. He says the following thing. He says, do you want to know why God brought these miracles upon Egypt? Do you want to know why Hashem created the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea? You know why Hashem did that? He said, because back in the day, there were 3 types of people that denied God. 3 types of deniers. One was a person that denied Hashem completely. He said, there is no God in the world. No God. The world always existed, was never created by anybody. That's number one. Number two was an individual that says, you know what, there is a God in the world. However, that God, he doesn't really know what's flying. He doesn't really know what's going on. Yeah, he created the world, but he doesn't know what's happening. And then there's the third category of people who say there is a God in the world. And that God knows what's going on in the world. Yet that God is not intimately involved in every aspect of my life. He's just out there. He's out there. He's up in the heavens. And he's watching. But he's not directly involved in every single thing that I do. He's not there on a daily basis calling the shots as to what happens in my life. And the Ramban tells us that the reason why Hashem brought about the miracles during the times of the Exodus was to show the entire world, to show them the hashgacha pratis, to show the world that Hashem is the one and the only one that is completely in control and involved in every single detail that goes on in this world. Hashem didn't just let this world go and just let everything happen. Whatever happens, happens. No. Hashem created the world, and Hashem consistently maintains the world on a daily basis, even today, even right now. He says the following thing. He says, Ha'osos v'hamofsim, these incredible signs and miracles that took place in Egypt, were there to serve as testimony to the emunah, to the belief that there is a God who is in control. And that's the message of Pesach. You want to know why we have so many mitzvot throughout the year? To remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, to remember the Exodus of Egypt? Because Hashem doesn't want to perform these miracles in every single generation. Hashem's not going to split the sea tomorrow or every single day. No, Hashem did it once in history. And Hashem tells us that every single year, and with all the mitzvahs that we do, we have to consistently remember that time in history. The time of the Exodus of Egypt, the time of those miracles, the time when Hashem showed his full control over the world. And through that, we will grow in our emunah, in our belief that Hashem is running the world, that Hashem is in complete control. And he ends off with such a beautiful thing. He says that when we stop and when we spend Pesach thinking about all these grand miracles that took place, the turning the water into blood, turning the Egyptian skies into total darkness, when we stop and we focus on it and we think about it, then that causes us to recognize that Hashem is involved in every aspect of my life, and Hashem is consistently performing miracles for me on a daily basis, even though they may not be big open miracles, but they're miracles nonetheless. I saw an incredible post that went around just yesterday. It could be you saw it. Absolutely unbelievable. Listen to this. It says that a 70-year-old man was hospitalized and needed oxygen for 24 hours. When he was about to be discharged, he received a bill from the doctor of $5,000. At that moment, the man started to cry. So the doctor tried to console him, and he said, "Listen, we'll negotiate the price. I'll give it to you a little cheaper, don't worry." And the man exclaimed, he said, "I'm not crying about the $5,000. I'm crying about the fact that for 78 years I've been receiving oxygen constantly from Hashem, and I never paid him a thing. Do you know how much I owe Hashem?" The doctor stood up and he cried together with this man. He recognized it. This individual recognized. He recognized Hashem's involvement in his life. It dawned upon him. And when we experience Pesach, what we're supposed to be feeling, what we want to achieve, is to look at the miracles that happened back then, look at Hashem's direct involvement with the world, and recognize that Hashem is involved on that kind of intimate level with me on a daily basis. That's it. That's the whole story. And how do we transfer that over to the Pesach Seder? How do we take that over? This Pesach Seder is so important. The Pele Yoetz tells us something unbelievable. He says that we know the whole mitzvah of the night of Pesach is to tell over the story of what happened. But he says it's not only that, we have to tell it over to the children in our household. We have to tell them the story of what specifically? We have to show them how Hashem revealed himself, revealed his great honor and his great glory, and as well his tremendous love and his tremendous compassion for all of us. That's the purpose of the Seder night. And he says that when we do that, and when we instill that message in ourselves and in our families, then we will properly guard all the mitzvos, and we will truly come very, very close to Hashem. So what are we supposed to be doing at the Seder night? What are we supposed to be doing? How do we feel this? How do we connect to something that happened so long ago that we did not experience, that we weren't there, our parents weren't there, our grandparents weren't there? How are we supposed to experience that? And the Sifsei Chaim, Rav Chaim Friedlander, says something unbelievable. He says that what we're supposed to do on this night is we're supposed to use our power of imagination. Every single person was granted that power. And we're supposed to imagine what happened. We're supposed to relive the story, saying over the details and the specific details of what took place, and try to close our eyes and imagine ourselves going through that experience. Imagine ourselves as that slave in Egypt, and imagine ourselves living through the 10 plagues, living through seeing Hashem's hand and his direct involvement in everything that was taking place in the world. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. And when we do that on the Seder night, he says we're truly going to be inspired. We're going to be inspired by all the miracles, and as a result, we're going to grow in our levels in a major way. You know, we only really have one shot at it. Well, I guess you could say two, because we're not in Eretz Yisrael. But it's such an important night. It's so incredible. Such an incredible message, and so important to instill this into our families in a very, very meaningful way. And we want them to experience it. We want everybody in the family to experience those miracles in Mitzrayim and to grow in their emunah in Hashem. And the only way for that to happen is if we really, really dig in and we really, really get clear what exactly happened in Egypt. And tonight we're going to go through some of that. We're going to go through the 10 plagues specifically, the Eser Makos, and we're going to talk about them. Talk about as many as we can, as many as the time allows for, and to get into the specific details of what happened. And just so you know, before we get started with that, in case you didn't notice on the screen, okay, when you clicked in to the live, okay, there's a little section over here that says Mar Makomos, okay, right over there. Thank you, Moshe. Okay, the little section says Mar Makomos, and feel free to click on that, and those are the sources that we are going to be utilizing tonight, and more importantly, those are the sources, the sheets that we were able to put together to help you at your Seder, to assist you, and those sheets are yours for you to take, to download and to print, and to utilize at your Seder, and we will be talking about them as the course of the evening goes on. Okay? But again, we just said before that the first thing that we got to know is we have to understand what took place during all of these makos, during all of these plagues. You know, the Ramban told us before that Hashem showed and Hashem wanted to show his complete control over the entire world. And everybody's familiar with the fact that when it comes to the plague of Dam, the first plague, the plague of blood, that the Nile River turned into blood. That everybody's familiar with the fact that all of the water in Egypt turned into blood. But what we often overlook is the fact that water is an integral part of every single thing that exists in the world. Water is a component of every single liquid. And in fact, did you know that the saliva of the Egyptians, yes, it's gross and it's disgusting, but it's true. The saliva of the Egyptians turned to blood. Did you know that when an Egyptian thought, you know what? I can't get a cup of water, but I'll go to the apple tree or I'll go to the mango tree. I'll take a bite of a fruit. You know what happened when he bit into that fruit? Well, the fruit juice all turned into blood. You know, the water that exists in the trees, inside the wood of the trees, all turned to blood. And when you looked around Mitzrayim, you didn't just see blood in the Nile River. You didn't just see blood in the sinks. You saw blood coming down from the trees. You saw blood pouring out of the cement of Paro's palace, because in cement there's a component of water as well. This was a total upheaval of nature. Okay? Hashem was showing the Egyptians, you know who's in control? I'm in control. You think that everything is great. Your life is great, smooth sailing for the Egyptians. We got our water. We have every single thing that we need. Hashem showed them that the most basic element, water, you're not in control of that. I, Hashem, am in control of that. And the same thing continued when it came to the frogs. We all have this picture in our minds of the frogs jumping around. For most people, myself included, the way when I think of the plague of frogs, what I think of is those little plastic guys that go on the table every single year at the Seder, and then you kind of flick them around until they fall into somebody's cup of wine, and then somebody gets yelled at, and it's never good. Okay, but that's what we think of when it comes to the plague of frogs. But did you know that during the Makot Tzfardea, during the plague of frogs, it wasn't just frogs? Okay, but the Emek Dover, tells us that crocodiles attacked the Egyptians as well. In fact, the frogs, we imagine them as just hopping around all over the place in a totally random fashion. But Hashem made a very, very cool miracle. You know who the first person that the frogs attacked was? They didn't come out of the sea and start attacking every single Egyptian. No, Hashem orchestrated in a way that when the frogs came out of the sea, all of them, they all came out together. Yes, some people say it was one big frog, others say it was many, okay. But they all came, and in an orderly fashion, all of the frogs walked and they marched together down the roads of Egypt, straight to Paro's palace, ignoring everybody along the way. They went straight to Paro's palace, walked in, went straight up to Paro's bedroom, where Paro was sleeping at the time, and they went straight at him. Straight at him. Right for the king himself. And the Medrash tells us that after they were done with him, and after they went inside his stomach and they were croaking everywhere, that's a pretty uncomfortable sleep, right? If I may say so myself. Then they went to Paro's servants, and then after that, they went through the entire Egypt. Unbelievable. You know, the frogs themselves, we know that every single animal has instinct. And they're scared when it comes to losing their life. They're scared of predators. They're scared of attack. No animals would rightfully on their own just give up their lives. But during this plague, one of the miracles was that Hashem set it up that the frogs voluntarily jumped into the ovens of Mitzrayim. They actually dug themselves straight into the bread that was being baked. In the ovens, and then when that bread was consumed, ultimately the frogs went into the Egyptian stomachs, and we all know what happened after that. And it wasn't too pretty. We're going to jump right now, in the interest of time, over to one of the most incredible makos, the plague of Arov, the plague of the wild animals. I mean, if you didn't believe in God up until this point, when looking at the dam, looking at the blood, and seeing the frogs everywhere, and the kinim and the lice, the Arov, the wild animals, should have caused every single Egyptian to automatically believe in God. You know what happened during that time? You see, animals, we know that animals feel the most comfortable when they're in their natural habitat. And we also know that the animals were brought from all four corners of the earth to attack the Egyptians during this plague. Now, that means there's a lot of different types of animals. There are animals that come from very, very cold climates, and there are animals that come from very, very warm climates. You know what Hashem did during this plague? Hashem set up a miracle where every single animal actually traveled with their climate. So the polar bears, that are used to a frigid climate, they came together with the ice and with the snow, and that came with them into Egypt. Why did Hashem do that? In order that they felt fully comfortable to be able to lay on as strong of an attack as possible. Unbelievable. That doesn't fit within our knowledge of nature. That doesn't fit within the normal course of the world. However, Hashem set up a situation where he was showing the world, no. The world doesn't follow any specific normal order. Hashem is showing us that he is in charge. He is the one who's in control of the world. He's in control of every last aspect. And to take a break from the Makos for a moment, as Rabbi Mas said before in his letter, he said that this idea, knowing that Hashem is fully in control, could be incredibly, incredibly unsettling or amazingly liberating. When a person recognizes that Hashem is the one who's in control, when a person recognizes that everything that exists in the world is out of my hands, but all of nature and all that happens in the world is run and is guided and is directed specifically by Hashem, then we realize and we know there's somebody who's out there who's controlling this, somebody who loves me, somebody who cares about me, my Father in heaven, and he would only do what is in my best interest. And the story continues. The story continues. We're going to skip over right now to the plague of Shechin, the plague of the boils. Also an unbelievable plague. You see, we all know that the Egyptians were covered in boils during this plague, from head to toe actually, and they developed into these blisters that destroyed their skin. However, what people may not realize, the Medrash tells us that there wasn't one boil, it wasn't one specific disease that struck Egypt during this time. There were actually 24 different forms of boils that attacked each and every single one of the Egyptians. But not only that, they had cures. They did have cures. They had cures for some of these boils. However, the boils all had opposite remedies. So you see, if a person took one of the cures, if a person took a remedy for one of the boils, you know what happened? It had a negative side effect on one of the other 24 boils. And this continued happening. So people would take the medicine, they would listen to the doctors, they would take a medicine, and then inevitably it created a problem with another one of the boils. Also, unbelievable miracle. And when it came to Barad, when it came to the hail, Hashem totally turned around our understanding of nature and our understanding of the order of the world. See, when it came to the plague of Barad, the plague of hail, we all know what hail is. Okay, we all know what that is and how that comes down. However, during this plague, it was completely different. Completely different. Hashem set up a system that the hail contained ice and the hail contained fire that was inside of these heavy ice balls. In fact, each of these hailstones was considered to be the size of what we know as a brick. Each and every single one. That's incredible. These hailstones, when they came down, when that fire came down, you know what took place? The hailstone, it came down with the fire inside, and then all of a sudden as it hit the ground, the fire burst open and destroyed everything that was in sight. Then the flames of the fire each shot out these ice balls that went flying in every single direction, killing everything in sight. Everything was consumed either by the fire or by the ice. This is an unbelievable thing. When you stop and you think about it, why did Hashem do this? Hashem has no need. If you want to hurt the Egyptians, if you want to get them back for what it is that they did to us, why does Hashem have to make fire and ice coexist? Why is that necessary? Why is that important? And the answer is exactly what we said before. It was to prove to the world, to show everybody that God is the one who is in full control, that God is the one who is running the show. And that was it. And that is the purpose of why Hashem did it. It wasn't necessarily to punish the Egyptians. It was to show the Egyptians and to show the world that Hashem is the one who is in control. We're going to do one more. We're going to head on over to the final plague. Makas Bechoros, the killing of the firstborn, as if it wasn't enough. As if the first 9 weren't enough, Hashem brought his ultimate display of power with plague number 10. You see, the plague began at exactly midnight. And at that moment, people in Egypt just started dying left and right. We know that all firstborns in Egypt were killed on that night. Many people think that was okay. It was the firstborn from the father, whatever. How many people could that possibly be? But they actually tell us in the Medrash that there were over 600,000 people that were killed on that night. 600,000 firstborn that died during that plague. And who were these firstborn? It was firstborn from the father or firstborn from the mother. And this plague actually revealed all of the illicit relationships that took place in Egypt during that time, because now everything was out in the open. Now you knew whoever died was a firstborn, and now it was very clear. It was very clear, what was going on. what was going on and what type of relationships were happening over there in Egypt. Every single firstborn died. There's not a single household that didn't experience a death. In fact, the Me'am Lois tells us that the firstborns who had previously died, Egyptian firstborns that had previously died, they were already buried. They were in the cemetery already buried. You know what happened to them? They actually rose up from the dead and came back to life during the plague and then died again and then died a second time, just to show everybody, just to show the world that Hashem is in full control. They actually, back then, even in those days, they had pictures on the wall, they had statues, and they would make statues and pictures out of people in their family, out of family members, the same way that we do with our pictures, and put them up on the walls. They would make these statues, these carvings. Any carving, any statue that existed during that time of a firstborn, at that time, at that moment, at midnight, those statues fell down to the ground and they all cracked and broke. Unbelievable miracle. Hashem showing us his involvement, his direct involvement in every single aspect of nature, in every single aspect of our lives. I heard an amazing story in which there was a Rav in Israel. He was taking a cab somewhere, and he's sitting in the back seat, and the cab driver turns to him in the middle, and he says, "Rabbi, I want to tell you something." He says, I have a friend who experienced a miracle, and because he experienced a miracle, this friend has a newfound recognition of God. And he is so devoted. He is so unbelievably devoted and dedicated to God because of that miracle and that recognition that happened. The rabbi said, "What was the miracle? Please tell me." He said, "Well, you see, my friend and I, we were soldiers. And after we completed our term of being soldiers, we wanted to go on a trip. We wanted to go on a trip together to celebrate. We were done. We were out of the army. So we went to go celebrate. We went camping. And we were sleeping in the tent in the middle of the night in the woods. And all of a sudden, I woke up in the middle of the night from this incredible shrieking, this incredible screaming. And I looked, and I saw my friend sitting there with a snake, with a big snake curling around his neck right then. And he was screaming unbearably. And then the snake was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter around his neck. And there was nothing that he could do. And neither of us were religious, but my friend at that moment, when he realized his life was on the line, he screamed out, "Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad." And at that exact moment, the snake unraveled and quickly slithered away. Unbelievable. And the rabbi turned to the taxi driver and he said, "Wow, that's an amazing story." And he said, "Yeah, isn't it so unbelievable? And that's why, because of that miracle, that's why my friend, he became so dedicated in this recognition of God, and now he appreciates him, etc., etc." And the rabbi said, "That's amazing. That's so awesome that he was so inspired. But what about you? But what about you?" And the driver turns to the rabbi and he says, "Rabbi, I think you missed what I was saying. I think you misunderstood me. Didn't you hear? I said the miracle happened to my friend. The miracle didn't happen to me." Ay, 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 ay. The rabbi thought to himself, how could it be? Somebody could witness an open miracle like that right in front of your eyes. This snake just slithered away as soon as he screamed out Shema Yisrael, but not recognize it, but not take it to heart. He said, "No, it was only my friend. It happened to him. It didn't happen to me. So I don't have that recognition. I didn't experience that inspiration." And we have to realize that at the night of the Seder, our job is to make this as real as possible and to recognize all of this that took place. to watch and to see in a literal sense, using our senses, using our imagination, to experience, to relive what took place in Egypt, to relive and to feel the miracles that Hashem did for us at that time. You know, the Rambam tells us something absolutely unbelievable. The Rambam says that on the night of the Seder, he says we have to teach our children. We all know that. But we have to teach them on their individual level. Each and every single child, based on what they know. He says if the child is young, the Rambam says, if he's young and he doesn't know all that much, you tell him on a basic level. You tell him or her, we were slaves in Egypt. Our forefathers were slaves. And you go through the basics of the story. If the child is older and more advanced, then you get into more and more and more with the child. Each and every single one based on their level. And that's exactly what our goal is for this year at the Seder night. To inspire our families, each and every single person at the Seder, from the youngest to the oldest, from the kids to the adults, everybody, to be able to feel and to relive the experience. And at this time I want to share with you some of the things that could be you have looked at already on the live in the Mar Makomo section as we saw before, but I want to explain each of these things, and we made some tools that could be utilized for you at your Seder. And I just want to go through them briefly for you to see it and to know what it is that you could do with them and how it is that you could use these tools. Thank you, Moshe. Okay, awesome. So what we have over here, is these are the new Mako sheets. Okay, we put together sheets, one page for each and every single one of the 10 plagues. And on that page, as you can see, and we're going to scroll through it, we're going to scroll through them. You have a visual, and then you have bullets telling you specific details of what happened during the plagues. Every single one of the details that I mentioned tonight as we were talking are all on these sheets, okay? And there are also sources there as well, so this way you have the sources. And it's very clear. Now, what can we do with this? What can we do with this paper? Okay, what can we do with this? Oh, let's hold it right here. Just real quick, okay, by Choshech, by the plague of darkness, okay, so it tells you, bullets, you have bullets 1 through 7 on this one. The darkness that came to Egypt, I don't know if you can read it, but I'll read it for you. The darkness that came to Egypt was as thick as a corner of a wall. That's in Shmos Rabbah. Number 2, even if you brought all the candles and the torches in the world and lit them, there would not have been light. And continues with facts, basic facts about, or not so basic, but facts about what happened during each and every single one of these miracles. Again, purpose being for us and for our families to relive those miracles and to experience them and every single thing that happened to the fullest sense. Okay? Now, let's continue. Let's hold it here for a sec. Thank you, Moshe. So just what can you do with these sheets on a practical level? Okay, first of all, I know in the past at this year when we did it at people's homes, I always like to make the photocopies, make actual hard copies and hand it to people. So I feel bad I couldn't do that this time. But if you have a color printer and if you have access to be able to print in color, it's obviously better and more effective in that way. But what can you do with these specific sheets? So first of all, on a bare bones level, okay, you have the facts, which is just unbelievable to read about and mind-blowing, okay? But on another level, what you could do with these sheets, okay, being that you have 10 sheets, you can hand them out. We know that the best way for people to learn is when they themselves are engaged, not when people necessarily are talked at, but when people are engaged, when children are engaged on their own. And if you hand out, let's say we'll split it between 2 nights, okay? So the first 5 plagues on the first night, second 5 plagues on the second night, and you hand out these sheets, okay? Let's say, if you're going to have 10 people at the Seder, so you give 1 page to every 2 people, and they talk it out together, or 5 people at the Seder, 1 page per person, whatever it may be, and give people a moment to, when you get up to that segment of the Seder, when you get up to the 10 makos in the Seder, give people a moment to read through it on their own, and then present it to the entire table. Present to everybody what they experienced during that particular makkah, during that particular plague that they read about it. Let's continue. Oh, so now, in honor of this year, we have a brand new game. Okay, those who have been to this shir in the past, know that we like to create some games that are meaningful and that are engaging at the Seder. Okay, again, we said it before. The purpose of this night is to teach and to engage our children. Okay, it was brought down in the Gemara that Rabbi Akiva used to give out special treats and special snacks to the kids at the Seder in order to keep them awake, in order to keep them involved. Okay, I'm sure there'll be plenty of treats and plenty of snacks going on over Pesach. But here's another way to be able to keep them involved. And we have a game that's new for this year. I want to thank my wife who came up with this incredible idea. We're all familiar with the game Two Truths and a Lie. Okay, usually people play it as like an icebreaker or something like that. Where you say two different truths about yourself and then one lie, and you put that all in there, and everybody has to guess. So we have the Two Truths and a Lie Pesach edition. Okay, and that's what you're about to experience now. Okay, in which we have these. Oh, a little slower. Okay, thank you. Right. One more. Let's stop right here. Okay, perfect. Here's an example of one of your cards. Okay, and again, you could hand these out and should hand these out to different people at the Seder, and they will read to you the two truths and a lie, and obviously not tell everybody at the table which one is the lie, of course, but they're going to read off various facts, two facts, rather, about each individual plague, and then one lie that is mixed in. So we're going to read it over here, okay? The lie, now, if you're the reader, don't say lie, okay, because then everybody's going to know. So don't do that. Okay, so that's just a disclaimer. Okay, so lie. During the plague of Shechin, we're talking about the plague of boils. Egyptian animals that were purchased after Dever did not suffer from the boils. Okay, then that person's going to read the next one. Okay, truth. There were 24 different forms of boils during this plague. Next one. The medicine used to heal one boil caused other boils to become more inflamed. Now, as you remember, when we were talking earlier, we spoke about Shechin, we spoke about boils, and we discussed the fact that there were 24 different forms of boils, and the medicine that was used to heal one caused problems for the next one. So you would probably very easily guess that this one is the lie. And through this game, okay, you'll be learning about everybody at the Seder. We'll have an opportunity to learn so much about the makos. And of course, after the lie, by the way, just a disclaimer, okay, because we don't want people, I would hate it to be on my shoulders that people, that everybody goes and thinks that the lies were really the truths. No. So after the rant is over, the person who's holding the card should just, explain out why this is a lie. And it says over here, the truth is the animals were afflicted with boils as well. There are 10 cards that are made over here, one for each and every single one of the makos. And again, use 5 per night or 10 at the same time, mix them up, hand them out, have a great time with it. Utilize this game at the Seder itself. I know we plan on doing it in Ritz Hashem at our Seder, and it's really going to be phenomenal because it's going to be so engaging and involving people in that kind of way. Okay, let's continue. These are all the cards over here for Two Truths and a Lie. Now, last year, those who tuned in last year, we created a new game last year that was called a Would You Rather game. Okay, many people are familiar with the card game Would You Rather. Okay, and it gives you two totally ridiculous options, and you have to decide which one you would rather. And most of the time, neither of them are good. Okay, but you have to pick one of them. So we created a Would You Rather Pesach edition. That was last year's game. So again, those who were at the shir, they got that last year. For those who are new, this is new to them. Okay, and each and every single one of these cards, has a scenario. Would you rather? Here we go. Be a slave working hard on building Pisom and Ramses, which will sink into the ground, or be a slave planting Egyptian orchards that Egyptians will benefit from. There's no right or wrong answer here. Neither situation sounds like a good one, but this causes us, when we play this Would You Rather, it causes every person at the Seder to really think deep into what happened when we were in Mitzrayim, what happened to our ancestors when they were there, what they experienced. And we're going to start really thinking about it. Hey, what was it like working so hard on Pitom and Ramses? Ooh, that must have been really hard. But at the same time, it was also very hard planting those orchards that I know that my bosses are going to benefit from, these bosses that are beating me and hitting me. Which one is worse? I don't know. But it causes us to get in and to really, really understand and to think about the story in a beautiful way. So we're just going to scroll through some of these. And again, print these out, use these at the Seder, hand them out, have each person. I want to thank, by the way, on here, Mrs. Avasar. Okay, Mrs. Avasar from Aventura, last year on Erev Pesach. So when we had presented the shir in the Avasar home in Aventura, and then we gave out these these sheets and the cards, etc. And on Erev Pesach, I got a message from Mrs. Avasar. She sent me a picture of her Seder table that was already set, and she put each and every single one of these cards by the different place settings. Okay, of the Would You Rather cards. So I'm assuming the reason she did that was this way to be able to involve the people right away as soon as they come to the Seder. People are coming and they all of a sudden start right away. They start thinking about the story, start thinking about Yetzias Mitzrayim, start thinking about the fact that they were there and really feeling that experience. Okay. Last but certainly not least, last year we created some sheets. Again, those who were here last year, you already have those sheets, but they are here anyway. And those who are new, these are new to you as well. These are sheets that go through the most essential parts of the Magid section of the Haggadah. Okay, the Magid section we know is the most critical part of the Seder, where we talk and we relive the experience. Okay, and about halfway through Magid, the second half, is where we start to get into. The real storyline of what actually took place. And the Haggadah goes through the psukim, the sentences, the verses in the Torah that spell out exactly what happened. Okay? And what these sheets do for you is as follows. Okay? These sheets go through. Let's hold it right there. These sheets, perfect. Okay, thank you, Moshe. These sheets go through each of those sections. I know you can't read it, it's very blurry on the screen, I'm sorry. But these sheets go through each of those sections of the Haggadah, broken down. Here you have the section of the Haggadah in Hebrew and in English, on the front with a visual, and then on the back of the sheet, which is right here, there's a blue bubble over there, and inside it says what happened. And similar to your Mako sheets, we just have bullets that tell you different things that happened, that happened during that time, during that segment of the Haggadah that you're reading, that actually took place over there in Egypt. Okay? On the bottom as well, on the bottom of each of these pages, we have a box that says picture this, and what we did in this box is that we took some of these facts, some of these details of what happened, of what the Jews suffered and their experience in Egypt. We put it in a little sentence here for you to read, in a little scenario, and to read and to imagine that you were there on your own. It says over here, you are a 15-year-old Egyptian girl observing the Jewish neighborhood for a day. What do you see? And this, again, is after you read the facts over here and you know and you see and experience what exactly took place. Now you could visualize it and verbalize it to everybody at the Seder. Okay? Once again, you could feel free to print these out and hand them out to each individual person at the Seder. Again, I want to conclude with the following: that the purpose of the Seder night is to instill in our families this message that Hashem is the one who is in control. Hashem is the one who is running this world and every single detail and every last aspect of this world. Hashem is in full control. And as we saw earlier from that letter from Rabbi Mas, who really hit the nail on the head, we feel during this time when it's so hard and it's so difficult for us, whether it be because of sicknesses or whether it be because of family members that we're nervous about, or whether it be our finances, etc., etc. This is a hard time for everybody. Yet we feel a sense that we're out of control, and that's so hard to deal with. But the message for now is the same message that Pesach gives to us, which is the fact that we're not in control and we never were. Hashem is the one who's in control and fully in control of all of this. There's a story that's told about a businessman who comes onto a flight and he sits down in his seat in first class And he notices that his seat is right next to this little 9-year-old girl. And she's sitting there at the beginning of the flight. She's just coloring in her coloring book. Okay. And he gives a friendly greeting. He sits down and they continue on with the flight. And as the flight progresses, this girl, she's still sitting there coloring her coloring book. But all of a sudden there's an announcement from the captain that this flight is going into heavy turbulence. Everybody has to remain seated with the fastened seatbelt. Remain in your seats. Don't go anywhere. We're going through heavy turbulence. And the turbulence begins to get heavier and heavier and more intense and more intense. And as the intensity progresses, everybody on the flight is in a turmoil and everybody on the flight is just going crazy. Everybody's panicking. Everybody's anxious. Everyone's all nervous because of the turbulence. However, the man notices that this little girl, the little 9-year-old girl, is still sitting there and just coloring her coloring book. She's still coloring that book as if nothing happened, as if there's nothing going on. And he turns to her and he says, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask you a question. Don't you notice what's going on? Didn't you hear what the captain said? There's turbulence. Everybody's scared. How come you're not anxious? How come you're so calm? How are you able to stay so calm and so peaceful and just color in your coloring book?" And she looked at him and she said the following. She said, "You have to understand." She said, "My daddy is the pilot. And I know that my daddy is one of the best pilots in the entire world. And whenever my daddy flies a plane, he flies it with the utmost safety and he knows exactly what he's doing. And I know with full confidence that there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that could go wrong if my daddy is the pilot." And that's the message of Pesach. And that's the take home for now. We have to realize, we have to recognize, we have to understand that our daddy is our Father in heaven, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is running the world, who is in charge of every single thing that is happening. The same Hashem that took the waters in Egypt and turned them into blood. The same Hashem that was able to strike all the firstborn in Egypt at the same moment. Same Hashem that is able to help us, that is helping us, that is saving us right now during this very, very stressful time. And that's the message, that's the take home that we should have from our Pesach Seders. And I certainly hope that that tonight's shir and that these materials that we presented are helpful to you, can be helpful to elevate the Seder for an inspiring evening of education for you, for your families, for everybody to be able to grow. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should have a Chag Kosher V'Sameach, a beautiful and happy and kosher Pesach that is with the utmost safety, the utmost safety and in the best of health. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should see a Yeshua from this situation that we're in right now. Have a wonderful, wonderful Yom Tov.